In the spring of 2013, the small coastal town of Black Hollow, Oregon, was waking from its winter slumber. Locals remember the week before Easter as unusually warm, with wildflowers blooming early along the cliffs and the smell of salt and pine mixing in the breeze. 5 close friends from Black Hollow Community College had been planning one last adventure together before graduation. They wanted to hike into the Crescent Gorge Nature Reserve, a sprawling, rarely explored canyon network only 30 miles from town. Unlike the well-mapped Grand Canyon, Crescent Gorge was notorious for sudden weather shifts, labyrinthine caves, and vanishing footpaths. Few people ever ventured beyond the first 2 miles. The group was made up of 2 young men, Lucas Brennan, a geology major with a restless streak, and Ethan Cole, a quiet photography student, and 3 young women, Maya Sullivan, an amateur botanist, Chloe Hart, a journalism student obsessed with mysteries, and Isabel Ruiz, an athlete who'd recently recovered from a knee injury. They were all between 20 and 22 years old, each carrying their own mix of hopes and secrets. On April 10th, they packed their gear: camping stoves, climbing ropes, notebooks, and Ethan's old 35mm camera. Before sunrise, they posed for a picture in the empty parking lot at the trailhead. In the photograph, Lucas is grinning with a folded map tucked into his back pocket. Maya is holding a jar with a single blue wildflower she'd found. Isabel's knee brace peeks out under her shorts. None of them knew this would be the last image ever taken of them alive. Crescent Gorge had a reputation even among seasoned hikers. Old legends told of hidden shafts carved by underground rivers, of whispers echoing from caves long after dusk, and of a vanishing point where compasses spun uselessly. Chloe, ever the skeptic, had printed out an article titled "The Crescent Myths" to debunk during the trip. The rest of the group laughed, but in the photo Ethan's face is turned slightly away, as if distracted by something beyond the tree line. That morning, the 5 friends stepped onto the overgrown path leading toward the gorge. The fog rising from the cliffs swallowed their silhouettes. Hours later, a storm rolled in from the Pacific, erasing their footprints. They would never be seen again. By evening, when the storm passed, the town of Black Hollow was quiet. The friends' families, expecting updates, tried calling, but each phone went straight to voicemail. Lucas's father, a retired park ranger, was the first to notice something was wrong. He had hiked these trails countless times and knew how long it should take to reach the first plateau. When night fell with no sign of the group, the families alerted the local authorities. Search teams combed the nearby cliffs and caves with flashlights and dogs, but found nothing. No footprints, no camping gear, no sign of the friends. It was as if the earth had swallowed them whole. Over the next week, news outlets began reporting the disappearance. Chloe's articles were discovered on her laptop. In them, she had meticulously recorded past disappearances at Crescent Gorge, some going back decades. One story described a series of hikers who vanished during a sudden fog in the 1970s, leaving only an abandoned notebook. Some locals whispered about the Hollow Vein, a rumored underground tunnel network said to twist in impossible ways, leading far beneath the canyon floor. Despite the growing fear, Ethan's father refused to accept supernatural explanations. He believed that the gorge's shifting terrain had confused the hikers, that maybe they'd gotten lost in a cave or slipped into a ravine. But even when professional spelunkers were called in, the search came up empty. Then, 2 weeks after the disappearance, a strange discovery was made. A hiker found a single blue wildflower pressed between the pages of a journal, lying on a ledge several miles from the trailhead. It matched the flower Maya had collected on the morning of their departure. The journal contained cryptic sketches, winding corridors, strange symbols on the canyon walls, and a warning written repeatedly in shaky handwriting. Do not follow the echoes. The town of Black Hollow was gripped by a growing unease. People whispered that the friends had not merely gotten lost, but had encountered something no one could explain. Local legends about vanishing points and the hollow vein began circulating again, more vivid and terrifying than ever. The authorities officially declared the 5 missing. Families clung to hope, but as the weeks turned to months, hope faded. The wilderness of Crescent Gorge seemed to have claimed them utterly, leaving only fragments, a wildflower, a journal, and the memory of a photograph that captured their last moments together. Weeks turned into months. Black Hollow grew tense, the air thick with rumors. The journal and wildflower had ignited a small obsession among the town's residents. Some claimed to hear whispers near the gorge at night. Others swore they saw flickering lights in caves that had never been explored. Then, one crisp morning, Maya's camera was found in a shallow stream near the edge of the canyon. The memory card inside was miraculously intact. When the families gathered to review the photos, their faces drained of color. The images showed the group smiling and joking, but behind them, in the shadows of the canyon walls, strange silhouettes with no discernible features lurked. In some shots, faint, almost ghostly figures seemed to stretch toward the friends, their shapes blurred, as if the camera itself could not capture them clearly. The police initially dismissed the images as trick photography, but the families were convinced they had captured something terrifying. The most chilling photo was the last one, the friends standing on a narrow ledge above a yawning chasm, their faces frozen in shock, staring at something unseen below. The next photo was missing, as if the camera had stopped recording at the exact moment the horror struck. Lucas, desperate for answers, started retracing their planned route, despite warnings. He was joined by a few brave townsfolk and a geologist named Dr. Amelia Hart, who had studied Crescent Gorge for years. They found signs of disturbed soil and faint footprints, but the tracks ended abruptly in front of a jagged cliff. No trail continued downward. It was as though the earth itself had swallowed the friends whole, leaving behind only the faint echoes of their passage. Then the strangest thing happened. The group found a narrow tunnel hidden behind a waterfall. Inside, the walls were covered with ancient carvings, symbols resembling eyes and swirling patterns, accompanied by faintly glowing moss. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones. Dr. Hart insisted the patterns were not natural. They seemed deliberately created, as if warning or summoning something. As they explored deeper, a chilling realization took hold. The hollow vein was real, and it seemed alive, almost aware of their presence. Strange whispers echoed through the corridors, too faint to understand, but unmistakably deliberate. Panic rose, but curiosity kept them moving. Somewhere deep within, it felt as if the missing friends were still there, trapped between the walls of the earth, calling silently for rescue. The town of Black Hollow, already haunted by legend, now faced a terrifying truth. The gorge was not just dangerous, it was alive, watching, and patient. Whatever had claimed the 5 friends was still there, waiting, and it might not be done yet. Night fell over Black Hollow, casting the canyon in a shadow so deep it seemed to swallow sound itself. Lucas, Dr. Hart, and a small team of townsfolk prepared to enter the hollow vein with ropes, lanterns, and a mixture of determination and fear. The journal hinted at hidden chambers, and the faint hum that had filled the tunnel was growing stronger, like a heartbeat from deep within the earth. As they descended, the walls became slick with damp moss, and the carvings grew more intricate, almost hypnotic. Occasionally, they glimpsed faint reflections in the stone, like the silhouettes of the missing friends just beyond reach. Whispers followed them, echoing off walls in impossible directions, blending fear and familiarity in a way that made it impossible to tell whether the hollow was alive or if it had absorbed the spirits of those it had claimed. Suddenly, the path split into two narrow passages. Lucas instinctively chose the left tunnel, where the hum grew louder, almost musical. Dr. Hart followed cautiously, noting that the carvings seemed to pulse in rhythm with the sound. Deeper and deeper they went, until the passage opened into a cavern the size of a cathedral, with walls glistening as though wet with some unknown liquid. In the center lay a mass of twisted roots and vines, pulsing faintly with an eerie green light. Lucas froze. A familiar laugh echoed from the shadows, Maya's voice, soft, distant, and unmistakable. The roots began to move, almost like they were breathing, and the faces of the missing friends emerged momentarily from the tangle, their expressions a mix of fear, wonder, and pleading. Dr. Hart, fascinated and horrified, realized that the hollow vein was a living prison, a kind of organic labyrinth, feeding off the energy of those trapped inside. It had somehow pulled the 5 friends into its core, suspending them in a state between life and death. They were conscious, aware, but unable to escape. The team tried to reach them, cutting at the roots and calling their names, but the cavern seemed infinite. Every action they took was absorbed by the hollow. Shadows twisted, whispers grew louder, and a chilling understanding dawned. The hollow vein did not tolerate intrusion. It was protective, possessive, and patient. Those who entered risked becoming part of its eternal tapestry. Lucas faced a choice: retreat and leave the friends trapped forever, or risk himself to reach them. His hand brushed a glowing vine, and he felt a surge of energy visions of the friends' final moments and the hidden chambers beyond. The hollow was not evil in the conventional sense. It was curious, alive, and hungry for connection, but in a way incomprehensible to humans. As they debated their next move, a sudden tremor shook the cavern. The vines pulsed violently, and a low roar filled the space. Time seemed to stretch. And then, silence. The rescue attempt had only just begun. The silence was heavy, almost tangible, pressing down on Lucas and Dr. Hart as they tried to process what had just happened. The cavern seemed suspended in time, yet every pulse of the glowing roots reminded them that life of a strange, alien kind flowed here. Lucas looked back toward the tunnel entrance, but it had disappeared, replaced by an unbroken wall of stone. The hollow vein had no intention of letting them leave. A faint whisper rose again, clearer this time. Lucas. Maya. The voices of the missing friends. Their words were fragmented, desperate, but somehow guiding. Lucas realized that the hollow could communicate through thought and memory, a conduit for those trapped inside. Each pulse of the roots carried a fragment of the friend's consciousness, urging him forward. They followed the whispering trail to a second chamber, smaller but even stranger. In the center stood a stone pedestal, etched with symbols that shimmered like liquid silver. On top rested an object, wrapped in a translucent membrane, a strange, pulsating crystal. It was almost alive, reacting to their presence, drawing them in. Dr. Hart reached out cautiously. The moment her fingers brushed the crystal, visions flashed before her eyes. The 5 friends, wandering through the hollow, each trying to find the others, their memories entangled with the labyrinth itself. The hollow had preserved them, but in doing so, it had woven them into its very fabric. The crystal was the core, the heart of this living prison, both trap and beacon. Lucas knew what had to be done. He remembered the journal's cryptic warning. To free what is bound, you must offer a piece of yourself. Without hesitation, he placed his hand on the crystal. Energy surged through him, memories of the friends intertwining with his own, fear and courage blending. He felt the hollow respond, the roots pulsing violently, almost in protest, before gradually softening. The friends' voices grew louder, clearer. "Lucas, thank you. We're free." One by one, the five emerged from the tangle of roots, pale but alive, blinking as if waking from a dream. The hollow recoiled, retracting its roots, and the tunnel back to the surface slowly opened, as if acknowledging the balance had been restored. Lucas stepped back, exhausted, but relieved. Dr. Hart, equally shaken, noted in her journal that the hollow was not malevolent, just incomprehensible, a living entity shaped by memory and desire. The five friends reunited, hugging, tears and laughter mingling. Black Hollow still whispered, still pulsed beneath them, but now it seemed watchful rather than predatory. As they emerged into the moonlight, the town below looked the same, but everything had changed. The hollow vein remained, a secret of the earth, alive, patient, and curious, waiting for the next souls brave or foolish enough to enter. And for Lucas, Maya, Elias, Harper, and Sienna, the experience left a permanent mark, a connection to something ancient, strange, and utterly unforgettable.